today is the day. It is Tradesman Upgrade Day. We have got a ton of parts and pieces laying right here that we are going to be upgrading into our 2015 Ram 2500, which is a tradesman model. We've got a lot of higher trim level stuff from different years that we're going to be installing and going over on this truck. So if you've got a tradesman truck or a lower package Ram truck, a lot of this information will be applicable if you've been looking into upgrading to a higher trim level package. So we've got a business center console here. We've got some radio stuff. We've got other interior stuff that we're going to be doing as well, upgrading to this tradesman truck. You guys can see right here. Again, it's a 2015 if you've been following along that we picked up. Full tradesman. We have been upgrading all the exterior to some higher trim level Laramie stuff. We've got Laramie bumpers, flares, paint match pieces on this thing, but the interior is still all from 2015 tradesman. It's not going to be a full Laramie swap, but there are a lot of pieces that are going to make the interior of this truck the next couple trim levels up. So first step is getting rid of this center console here. That's going to be the main piece that we're going to be starting with. First step is removing our old one, and then we'll get into everything else that we're going to be doing. But just to give you guys a little look, sneak peek in here, that's what we're starting with in the beginning. So let's get to work and take out that center console. I can already hear you guys now. Yes, we used a chrome socket on an impact. It's going to be okay. The world will go on, people. One thing to note on the center console removal, you guys can see I'm actually removing the bolts for the passenger seat to kind of tilt this back to get a little easier access to remove the center console. So remove all that. One thing to note that I thought was interesting, this bolt right back here that's hidden, that might be a little holdup if you don't know about it. So on the center console, there's one there and one in the front corner. Front corner is kind of easy to see, but this back one, a little bit more difficult. So that's the location of that hidden bolt. We'll do that, and then we should be able to tilt this back and get the bolts from underneath. Where the center console is attached to this passenger seat is with this top bracket right here and this bottom one down here behind this seat belt. As you can see, it's bolted to the seat frame right here, and then the center console is actually bolted. You can see I took this one off already, but the stud comes through this bracket and is bolted from this top point here. The lower point is this one right down here. I do think you could probably sneak this out without dealing with the passenger seat, but then again, we might need to take these brackets off for the center console swap, so not always a bad idea. Give yourself a little bit more room, but it's really just this bolt, or nut, I should say, this nut right here, and this lower one down here. So we'll go ahead and take that bottom one off. Okay, now we should be free. And there you have it. There is the original center console jump seat out of the truck with the front tray there. So this one's out and it is ready to, actually it's already sold. So we got this one sold and we are ready to venture on to the new one. We've got a little bit of cleaning up to do. Good time to vacuum. And we'll go ahead, clean up, and get ready to prep for the installation of the new business center console. We do need to take apart the lower pieces of the dash because it meets right up to the front part of the dash. So this lower stuff needs to be removed, but we'll get into that next. We went ahead and just removed the driver's seat for ease of kind of the installation, and that way you guys can see a whole bunch of everything. Also, we're gonna have to take off our jump seat, a seat belt addition here. So that was a little bit easier to take off as well, seeing that this Torx head was kind of right against the carpet hump right here. So got that out of the way. Not completely necessary, but might just make it a little easier to clean up all of your Cheetos and Doritos that you've left over from all of your trips. So next part before we go ahead and install the console is we actually do need to remove this bezel. I don't say radio, but I will say the bezel right here with all of this trim package and the trims right down here in the drawer. You can see this bezel right here is square, and this doesn't actually meet up to the center console as well as the one that I have that I'll show you guys here. This will actually meet up a little bit funny. The one I have, and also we're going to do a radio upgrade at the same time, that bezel will install nicer the way it comes from the factory. I'll show you that now. Here's the new bezel, and you can kind of see how this is tapered a little bit on the bottom edge here, and that is to meet up to this a little bit nicer. You can see our little DIN pocket there that kind of goes into that front part of the mat. And once you kind of squeeze this up against there, again, once in the truck, you can see it'll be a little bit tighter, but you can see it's kind of beveled there to meet up to this radius of the center console. I'll kind of hold this in there, that way you can see up against the other one exactly. So right here you can see squared, no bevel, and then you've got the bevel version kind of right next to it, holding it up. So that front DIN pocket, again, kind of where it attaches. This is where the business center console swap, you can do it a lot of different ways. We are kind of doing it, packaging it together with a radio upgrade, as well as a couple other things at the same time, because it just depends on how many additional factory options you want to upgrade at the same time. I am kind of a big believer in kind of doing it once and kind of adding everything you can in one shot. So not only are we going to do the center console, we're going to do the radio upgrade because we haven't done that as well. You don't need to do any of the additional upgrades if you're just doing the console, but you're going to be in there, you're going to be doing it anyway. So we've got our factory little, I don't even know what they call this guy. We're going to go to the 8.4 Uconnect screen at the same time. That's going to be coming a little bit later in the same video. Also, you can see our trailer brake controller there and some of the options that the truck has, but I really like our upfitter switches in our other Laramie truck. So I'm gonna go ahead, I've got a fix for that'll probably be in this video. Again, not a completely factory install, but again, we'll dive into that because I really wanted upfitter switches and I want the look of factory upfitter switches. So we have a factory upfitter switch and a different way to control those. But up next on the list is to remove these panels, remove this bezel, and I think at that point we're ready to start installing new stuff. We are fully disassembled now. We've got all of our dash pieces out. We've got our factory radio out. We've got our bezel out. And what I was mentioning before about just the bezel and not the radio, this is where you could basically swap all of the controls, your switch panels, your cubby, selector over here for your transfer case, anything that is in this panel, whether it's a 1500, 3500 optioned out this way or that way, everything pretty much transfers over to this different bezel with this different cut in it. So that's what we're going to end up doing. We'll have to spend some time kind of prepping up this new bezel with all of the old stuff. This is where we're going to jump to the 8.4 radio installation in this bezel because we're not going to be going back with our factory radio. One thing I didn't mention is we did try to source this stuff used. Honestly, all of this came from a trip to the local Ram Dodge Mecha salvage yard, and the console was kind of sitting there, and that's what kind of slowly but quickly snowballed into the console upgrade, which snowballed into the 8.4 upgrade, which if I'm going to take the bezel out, well, I'm going to do these new switches. So this is kind of where it all led from, but it stemmed from a trip and getting this stuff used. We've got our new bezel all swapped over from all of our old pieces. We've got our new climate control. We've got our new big screen opening, and we've got our new lower switch panel here. So this is our old one. These are the switches that it kind of came with. No upfitter switches on the bottom. So what this is this is a factory Mopar switch panel just with the upfitters with the same top switches that I have. There's no park assist on the front or the rear. I forget, one's for the front, one's for the back. This truck does not have one in this location. So same as what the truck came with, just with the upfitter switches. This is our old trailer brake controller, which kind of pops out of this piece. Swapped over, swapped the vents over, and then I actually just needed the screws from this one. So that's all there. This radio upgrade is a kit that kind of gives you the big opening and also upgrades your fan controls and gives you this new cluster look with the 8.4 screen. This kit upgrades to a 7-speed fan. If you can see right here, you've got a 4-speed dial for different speeds or controls on your fan. This upgrades that to 7, which is kind of what the gas trucks come with. A lot of the heavy duty trucks come with 4, or the lower model trucks, whatever. But it gives you these harnesses that we need to install. We've got a module and we've got a new resistor that goes in the passenger side. So that's where we're at before we put this screen on. But we did go ahead and run those wires for those modules and that new blower motor. All that stuff is going to be down here. There is a ton of information on 8.4 upgrades and very specific. So we're going to go ahead and install those modules, install that resistor, run that wiring. Basically all goes right up in here, and it's plug and play stuff. So you've got this harness, there's another harness here. Everything goes into factory locations and factory wiring, which is very, very, very nice. I'm a very big, like, needs to be OEM fit finish. Everything needs to function like OEM. So that's a huge plus to getting some of these kits. And that stuff's going to go right in here, but I'm going to knock that out. That wiring will come up through here. And then when we go ahead and put our new bezel in, and before I connect everything behind there, that is all done and ran. And then we can kind of move on to the rest of our center console and some of the other things. But those upfitter switches, we do need to run some wires, but we'll probably do that as the center console goes in as well. I'll show you guys that stuff. Just a quick look underneath here. So here's the new resistor location. Here's the new harness that they give you, kind of looped around right here. That is the motor. So you got a new plug for the motor. Put that harness in, kind of wraps around here, plugs in down here. I depinned where they wanted you to depin. Again, you guys can kind of find this installation instructions pretty easy. We're just breezing through it. For some reason, I did have to lengthen their harness to run it as nicely as I wanted it. Not sure the last one that I did wasn't that way, but who knows. So got this module installed over here as well, and we've got that harness kind of ran up top here, and that goes to where the new bezel is going to go. So we are done with the radio. We're done with the wiring. We can put our new bezel in, kind of check that completely off the list and kind of move on. One thing that we have not talked about that I have not seen as many people do is do the new switch panel down here. So we've got our brake controller that we just swapped over. We've got all of our factory buttons here that came with the truck. Now, how are we going to integrate these auxiliary upfitter switches when there's no factory plug and play, there's no wiring options underneath the dash? It's not pre-built into this truck. So we've got a new switch panel, but how are we going to operate them? How are we going to run these? How are they going to function? Because a factory truck that has upfitter switches has a really nice pre-built fused and relay box underneath the hood, and it's already set up, it's already there. Well, what we did, and because there's no factory stuff already integrated to the truck, you're kind of left very wide open, and it gets very expensive if you look up all the part numbers that are attached to the wiring that goes from this switch panel all the way into the engine. So this company right here, what we found, some Google searching, found this company, there she is, and they make this Ram auxiliary switch relay kit. So what this does in a factory nice way is it takes the plug on the back of this switch right here, this plug, and the first thing that they give you is this little jumper harness. So this takes your factory plug underneath the dash, piggybacks it, and goes right into this harness. What that does is it runs into this. They have a pre-built related and fused switch panel that you have to run into the engine bay, but it's kind of a standalone thing, but they've integrated it so it works with the switches, so it gives you the perfect look of what you're going for and gives you the nice setup and ability to kind of plug in your 5 accessories with a fuse block that actually kind of looks very similar to a factory Ram one. You've got all of your power stuff right there. This will then run into the cab and integrate in with this end, so it is plug and play, and then it hooks up to the factory plug, like I said. So really cool. I would love to go OEM, but a lot of times due to programming, cost, all that stuff, this seems like a very nice solution. Again, I haven't tried it, but we're going to, and you know, for $150, we're going to give her a shot because it's very reasonable and it seems very nice. Like I said, As long as we got factory plug and plays and we're not like cutting wiring, all that stuff should be good to go. Give you nice instructions. Last thing that we got to do is just run this jumper in this plug right here, and then that can kind of tuck back, and that will get kind of hidden in our center console here, which will be really nice. So we're gonna go ahead and do that, plug that in, and then we can get to putting the bezel in. I knew I was forgetting something. I knew I was getting too ahead of myself. There's another thing that we have not talked about and that you need to make sure you need to do, but the bezel is in. It is looking factory AF. The only thing that's missing would be a matching black leather dash that we're still hunting for. This center console right here that we haven't talked about completely. So again, found this at our used local basically salvage mecca yard of all Ram trucks. So what's nice about that is going to the place in person, you can, number one, you can actually see the location. I've heard a lot of guys that are getting stuff online and then it shows up a little bit different, or some of the miscellaneous pieces are missing. And when you're doing this, these miscellaneous pieces can kind of add up, and they just kind of nickel and dime you. And I've had this burn me before, where it's just like, hey, I'm gonna do this quick, easy project. It's for like maybe $200 to $400, maybe $500. You know, you get these center consoles. They're not really like super cheap, even used in good shape. But if they don't come with the brackets, or they don't come with these little rubber mat trays, the mat trays aren't too bad, or these little side panel covers where it meets up to the front of the dash, these can all add up. While you're hunting, make sure that you're looking for as well are these little side panel kick things that mesh into the front of the dash. These will complete the look and are completely necessary in my opinion. That way you kind of mesh up to the dash, you mesh up to the bezel. You've got these brackets that are a little, you know, sometimes they don't come with them. Those go underneath and into the front part of the dash. That's why I kind of stopped, because one of these brackets needs to attach this thing right here. The other one sits on the floor and attaches right here. So you need these kick panels, you need these mounts, and then these little rubber tray mats. One goes in by the cup holder, somewhere in there, and then this one sits right here. And if you want the complete factory OE look, you need the mats to do it. What we need to kind of stop to do is mount the front one, and I'll show you guys where those mount now, so we can just go ahead and do it. One goes right here, that's where a factory jump seat was, and then this other one, there's a bolt location right there. We use those. That'll be the rear mount. Then the front mount, it goes, I believe, right up in this location here somewhere. I need to kind of look that back up again. Again, I've never done it before, and I will tell you guys that. One more thing we'll also need to do before we go ahead and place that center console in that we figured out was all of the OE wiring in that jump seat center console, the one that came in the truck, actually ran right here into these 3 plugs. Now on the business center console, this one will stay down here. I'll show you guys on the console. That will stay down here. That kind of goes there. But this harness, which actually is fairly easy to remove, you can see as I push it, it's this one right here. We'll go ahead and take that out of the carpet, because those actually plug up in this area. These will move, this will stay, and this factory air duct right here, I believe also needs to come out, because that is a little bit different shape, and I believe it mates up right underneath there where that mount is. Got a little adapter. So new console, here's the one plug that I mentioned coming off to the side that'll shoot right over to the driver's seat, and we've got the other 2 plugs right up here, right at the front, and we've got our rear HVAC stuff ducting basically right here in this square shape, and that'll meet up right at the edge of the dash. think it is about that time that this center console makes its way into the truck for the final time. So we've got our brackets all secured, front and back. I've been watching over a couple of videos on YouTube just making sure I don't miss anything. One thing that I did run into that I didn't see anybody cover, and I'm not really sure why it's different on mine, but this is where the factory kind of speed clips go into the dash. Those were right there, and that kind of attaches our lower dash piece that was like right here. This piece right here is where the pins and kind of it gets accepted into this part of the dash for the business console. So I had to take these out and move them up here because we're not going to use these anymore. We're going to end up using these. I'm pretty sure the screws that kind of attach from here don't have anything to go into, obviously. So we're just going to transfer those. Those just kind of push in from the backside. You can squeeze them out. The other thing that I didn't see anybody exactly cover, this is the factory USB, and this is the factory kind of like 12 volt stuff. Again, that was right here and right here. I kind of took them out of this piece, but I don't really think they exactly have a home. I'm not sure if these just kind of like hang out or what. The new console, I believe, runs all of the USB and everything off of this plug or the other two that are up there, I think, anyway. Not really sure on that right this second, but we'll get it in, we'll get it figured out. But for now, those are just going to hang out up there, and we're going to put these in. But we're ready to slam this sucker home. Real quick before this cover gets put back on, I did end up taking it off. It's really just one screw holding it on, just pops right off. All this stuff just like, you just have to tug on it, especially this piece right here. There's two screws up top, man, you just gotta yank. Just gotta yank on her. But I'm gonna put this piece back in, just show you guys real quick. Got everything connected up in there. Like I was mentioning, that is the new connection point. Those other speed clips have served no purpose, so I just transferred them over. So that was a good move there. And because, again, we got this from a place that I could go physically see and visit, we've got our side panel pieces. I've actually got the factory hardware. A lot of people were searching and digging for hardware because I think you end up with just getting this with none of the extras, versus if you go there, it's like, hey, I need this is in a truck, and I'm going to pull it, or you're going to pull it, but I'm going to need every single piece that's attached to it. So we've got all that, no issues there. We've got our HVAC lined up down inside there, so that goes to the rear, and you can kind of see our upfitter switch wiring just chilling right there, ready to be plugged in. We probably are not going to get into wiring that in this video. It's just going to get real long with some of the other stuff we're still doing. But this part of the harness will run from outside of the engine bay up through the dash here, up through this little area right here, and will all connect to what's there right to the switches. So that's what this part of the harness is for. And then this block can be outside in the engine bay. Technically it could be inside if you had a lot of inside accessories, but more or less with an upfitter switch they are in the engine bay. So that's probably where it's going to go. But for now, at least we have the wiring in the appropriate place, and all we got to do is this cover piece and the side panel piece. Take 2 seconds to get access back to it. So for now, we're going to button it up, seeing that we don't have anything to do with that. And we're just going to rock on putting the hardware in. We've got, like I said, the two screws up there, our 4 bolts down low, 2 on the sides. Get this thing in there, buttoned up. We'll keep moving. We are in. All bolts are tight. This thing is good to go. Man, I love center consoles, let me tell you what. That is awesome. So pumped. Getting ready to put the seats back in. Got a little bit of cleaning to do, but we're going to put the seats back in. We do, in fact, have to take off just the jump seat Torx bolts for the, basically the lap belt, let's put it that way. So we just need to kind of undo that. And then on the other side, there's a little bit of a bracket and the same lap belt kind of attachment. So we'll get those off, and then we can put the seats in. And then maybe, just maybe, we may have something for this area as well. We couldn't help ourselves Well, as you can see, yes, we have the steering wheel off of the truck because right here, this is our old piece. There's something missing from this area right here. And this back base here, as you can see, has the radio controls on the back section of this steering wheel. Now, unfortunately, you do have to pull the wheel off to do any of the radio upgrades on the back there. It is a little bit of work, and we did happen to have to make some tools to make it work, but in my opinion, very worth it. We'll go over some details at the end. I just kind of want to get through it. I've never done it, so I just kind of want to make sure that we're good, but we also got this while we were at our used salvage place. On top of that, we also have a new dash cluster for the truck. So we're gonna go ahead and swap that out to the higher level trim package. Again, this is stuff that has been covered a ton, but the dually, you got the big screen, you've kind of got the whole display. This one is very basic, very generic, and we were cruising Marketplace one morning. Guy had a good deal. He programmed it for us with the exact miles, the exact idle hours. I think you can do it on Alpha OBD as well, but we have a new cluster for it. So while we're here, we're also going to do a cluster and radio controls. Now, if I was really thinking ahead, and again, it just snowballed, right? This is what happens. It snowballs because he had the steering wheel controls there. Gave me a good price on it, pretty cheap, a lot of work, but no big deal, right? And then I'm like, man, we should have maybe just grabbed a Laramie steering wheel with that, but we can always take it back off. It's honestly really not that bad. So unfortunately, like I said, you can't get to that stuff without taking the whole thing apart. So we got to go ahead and put our base back on. It's still a black wheel. It'll still look good, but radio controls, in my opinion, are just, once you have them, I mean, I sound like a spoiled little girl, but so the cluster, honestly, probably one of the easiest things to swap out. It's 4 T15 Torx, and it's literally one plug in the back. So it's one plug. I don't understand how something this new is actually that easy to swap. But as you can see here, here's your old basic one, little mini screen, and here's the new one. We have a functioning coolant temp on there. We got all the RPMs. All the normal stuff. Basically call this the American edition. And there we go. So apparently it just plugs in. We got it programmed already. And yeah, it's got the same miles on it. This truck, we just hit 30,000 miles on this truck. Just hit 30. So we're giving it like a 30K, update here. So we're cruising. Steering wheel's back on. We gotta look up a torque spec if there isn't a couple braps. And man, we're almost done. It may be the next morning or day, but we are almost done. I'm so stoked. I'm so pumped. Yes. All right, we're gonna keep rolling. Hey-oh, got him. We got them, boys. All right. I wanted to be done before 7. All right, cool. We're done. We got to clean up. We got to hook up our batteries. For those of you guys who are probably concerned about my well-being and safety, we did disconnect the batteries well in advance before we ever messed with an airbag. I've watched a couple videos. Doesn't seem like anybody else really mentions that or cares. Maybe the newer trucks don't really need it. So I really wasn't sure, but the way I was taught was disconnect them for X amount of time. So that's what we did. We have yet to test everything, but controls, cluster, center console, radio, switches that aren't wired completely yet, but we will be. So tons of upgrades. Honestly, I can't think right now. I just want to clean up, get ready for, well, today. And yeah, we'll catch up once we get everything tested, but I'm pumped. It may be gray, it may not be my top choice, but man, I feel like it was money well spent. Super, super ecstatic with the way everything came out.